Good morning everyone. Today we are going to study history class 6 chapter number 4 what books and burials tells us. Okay, it is an important chapter of class 6 history. We are continuing with the concept classes. Welcome to the Shalja classes. Now we are going to study this chapter. So now let's continue. What book, chapter number 4, what books and burials tell. Books, as you know, and burials mean places where peoples are being that peoples are being on fire on the religious purposes, like the Christians and the Muslims do in the religious time, and the people die, someone die. So Mary in the library, as the bell rang, the teacher asked the student to follow him because they were going to the library for the first time. As the bell rang, the teacher asked all the students to follow the teacher because they are going to a library for the first time. When Mary stepped inside, she found the library much larger than their classroom. Okay, and there were so many shelves, all full of books. In one corner was a cupboard filled with a large old volume. Seeing her trying to open the cupboard, the teacher said, "That cupboard has very special books on the different religions. Did you know this? We have a set of the Vedas." What are Vedas? Mary wondered. Let's find out in this chapter. So, one of the oldest literary sources in the world are Vedas. You may have heard about the Vedas. They are 4 Veds: the Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Yajurveda and Atharvaveda. Okay, the Rig Veda is the most important one. The oldest Veda is the Rig Veda, composed about 3,500 years ago. The Rig Veda includes more than 1,000 hymns called Sukta or well said. These hymns are like a rhythm, song in the rhythm, like that are hymns. Okay, 3 gods are especially important: Agni, the god of fire; Indra, a warrior god or god of weather; and Som, a plant from which a drink was prepared. Okay, in the Hindu religion there are 3 main gods that the Rig Veda mentioned: Agni, the god of fire; Indra, a warrior god; and the Som, a plant which a special drink was prepared. These hymns was composed by sages, rishis. Price taught students to recite and memorize each syllable, word and sentence. Syllable means syllabus, a singular word and sentence, bit by bit. That means in detail, with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught and learned by men. Okay, a few were composed by women. The Rig Veda is an old Vedic Sanskrit which is different from the Sanskrit you learn in school. That means the Sanskrit which you study in nowadays, that is different from the Sanskrit found in the Rig Vedas. Okay, so moving ahead, Sanskrit and other languages. Sanskrit is a part of family or languages known as Indo-European. Sanskrit is a part of family or languages known as Indo-European. Some Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri and Sindhi. Asian languages such as Persian and many European languages such as English, German, Greek, Italian, Spanish belong to this family. Sanskrit, the part of family which includes these languages. They are called a family because they originally had words in common. Okay, take the words Matra, Sanskrit; Ma, Hindi; Mother, English. Okay, do you notice any similarities? Other languages used in the subcontinent belong to different families. For instance, those in the northeast belong to Tibeto-Burman. Tibeto means Tibet and Burman means Myanmar family. Northeast language. Sanskrit family includes Indo-European, Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri and Sindhi, Persian, English, French, German, Greek, Italian, Spanish. They belong to this family, Sanskrit family. Northeast languages belong to the northeast are coming to the family of Tibeto-Burman. Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam belongs to the Dravidian family, and the language spoken in Jharkhand and other parts of central India belong to Austro-Asiatic family. Okay? Understand? Now, list the language you have heard about and try and identify the families in which they belong. You have to list the languages you have about different languages you have heard other than that. This and try and find families which they belong. The books we use are written and printed. Nowadays, the books we are using are written and printed. The Rig Veda was recited and heard rather than read. Okay? That means some person recite that Rig Veda. Okay? Rather than the people are reading a book. No. Some scholar or some person recite and heard. Okay? Some scholar recite and other heard. This is not at the time that everyone will read. Okay, it was written down several centuries after it was composed. That means it was composed by some group, and they kept what they have to write. They kept in their mind, and after several centuries, let's suppose. One, okay, generation G1, generation one. Generation one people is in the group of people who compose the Rig Veda, who study the Rig Veda, what they have to write. Okay, then several centuries mean several generations. Then they passed to the next. Okay, like this G1. This is generation one. Then they pass it to their next generation, what they have to write in the Rig Veda. Okay, are you understanding or not? Okay, let me explain it again. What they are saying that Rig Veda was written rather than read. It was written down several centuries after it was composed and printed less than 200 years ago. So, let's suppose generation one is in the group, a person in the generation. Let's suppose that the generation one, he was in the part of the group that composed the Rig Veda. Okay, then generation one. Okay, then this person teaches the writings of Rig Veda to his son. That means generation 2. Then this eventually died. Then this person passes the knowledge of the Rig Veda to his son. That means generation 3. Okay, then this person died. This generation 3 passes to generation 4, generation 4 to generation 5. Okay, and then maybe it is the generation 5 have in the group who wrote the Rig Veda. So that means they are basically saying that Rig Veda was passes to many generations, but when they sort of composed, and after coming many generation later, after several centuries, the Rig Veda was written down. Okay, are you understanding or not? So let's move on. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed and printed less than 200 years ago. That means the generation 5, this generation writes the Rig Veda in a temporary, in the natural form of book, in the palm leaves or birch tree trunk. Okay, and then less than 200 years ago it was written down. Okay, generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, generation 4 and generation 5. How historians study the Rig Veda? Historians like the archaeologists find out about the past in addition to material remains. They examine written source as well as. Let's see how they study the Rig Veda. Some of the hymns in the Rig Veda are in the form of dialogues. Okay, this is part of the Sanvansacha hymn. They are giving a part. A dialogue between a sage named Vishwamitra and two rivers, Bees and Satluj, that were worshipped as gods. That means they are giving a dialogue between a sage or a rishi named Vishwamitra and two rivers, Bees and Satluj. You have heard about that in geography. That were worshipped as god. That means as goddess. That means people worship that they are Bees and Satluj are the goddesses of the people. Okay, so let's move on. So let's a page from a manuscript of the Rig Veda. We have studied that they will give us a dialogue. Now they are giving a page from a manuscript of the Rig Veda. This manuscript on the bridge back was found in Kashmir. Okay, about 150 years ago. It was used to prepare the earliest printed text of the Rig Veda. It is a page of Rig Veda as well as an English translation. They have translated in English. It is now preserved in the library in Pune, Maharashtra. Okay, now here is a dialogue of Vishwamitra and the rivers, that is Bees and Satluj. Vishwamitra said, "O rivers, come down from the mountains like two swift horses." Why two swift horses? Because there are two rivers now. So the Vishwamitra are praying that the two rivers come very fast down from the mountains, like a two horses, like two shining cows that lick their calves. That means two shining cows that they are feeding their calves or feeding their sons. Okay, son, that means the child of the cow. Okay, you move like chariots to the sea. Chariot, yes, you know, to the power of Indra. That means they move the chariot in the sea to the power of the Indra. You are full of water and wish to unite with one another. The rivers. Now, this is the dialogue of the Vishwamitra. The river said, "We who are full of water move along the path of the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot stop. Why do you pray to us, O sage?" Okay, Vishwamitra, "O sisters, please listen to me, the singer who has came from a distance with his chariots and carts. Let your waters not rise above your axles, so that we can cross it safely." That means Vishwamitra are praying to the river that they stop so that the Vishwamitra with his chariots can cross safely the river. We will listen to your prayers so that you can cross safely. Historians point out this hymn was composed in the area where these rivers flow. They also say that the sage lived in a society where horses and cows were valued animals. Okay, that is why the rivers are compared to the horses and the cows. Do you think that the chariots were also important? Give reasons for your answer. Read the verses and find out what the modes of transport that are mentioned. Other rivers, especially from the Indus and its other tributaries, and the Saraswati, also named in the hymn. That means the hymns also named the Indus and the Saraswati. The Ganga and the Yamuna, as obvious, it should be there, but the Ganga and the Yamuna are named only once in the hymn. Okay, now let's move on. Cattle, horses and chariots. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda for cattle, children, especially sons. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda for cattle, children. There are many prayers in the Rig Veda written in Rig Veda for the cattle, children, especially sons, and the horses. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in the battles, who were fought to capture cattle. Battles were also fought for land, which was important pasture, and for growing hardy crops that ripened quickly, such as barley. Some battles were fought for the water to capture people and to capture people. Okay. So they are giving the different types of why why battles happen for the water, for growing crops, for sometimes for land. Okay, sometimes to capture cattle. Some of the wealth that was obtained was kept by the leaders. Some was given to the priest, and the rest was distributed amongst the people. Some of the wealthy was used for the performance of the yajnas or sacrifices. Some wealth was used to perform the performance of sacrifices. Rest was distributed among the people. Some was kept by leaders. Some was given to the priests. Okay, among the people. Yajnas. Underline this. Yajnas. Okay. Yajnas. These were meant for gods and goddesses. Offering could include ghee, grain, and in some cases animals. That means people give sacrifice grain, ghee, and some in cases they sacrifice animals. Most men took part in these wars. These were not no regular army, but there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters of war. Okay. And peace. They also chose leaders who were often brave and skillful warriors. So that means people's. Let me understand. Let me explain you this again. Okay. So let me erase this. Rigveda. Most men took part in these wars. Okay. These were no regular army. There was no regular army, but there was assemblies where people met and discussed the matter of war and peace. They also choose leader who will be their leader, who are often brave and skillful warriors. Okay. Now, words to describe people. There are several ways of describing people in terms of the work they do. That means they can be say people, hey farmer, if the people is a farmer, the language they speak, work they do, language they speak, the place they belong to. That means a person in Bengal can be say, oh see, here's a Bengali. That means a Bengali speaking persons came. They now work they do, the language they speak, the place where they belong to, their family, their communities, and their cultural practices. These type of in this way, the several ways in which the people can be described. Let us see some of the words used to describe people found in the Rig Veda. There are two groups who are described in terms of their work. The priests, sometimes called Brahmins, who perform various rituals, and the Rajas. What they are basically saying is there are two groups which are described in terms of their works. The priests, sometimes called Brahman, who perform rituals, and the Rajas. That means Brahmins and Kshatriyas. These Rajas were not like the ones who will learning about later. What they are saying? These Rajas were not like the ones who will be learning about later. They don't have capital, cities, places, armies, nor they collect taxes. These kings. Okay. So moving on. Generally, sons did not automatically succeed fathers as Rajas. Read the previous section once more and see whether you can find out what the Rajas did. Two words to use to describe the people or the community as a whole. One word was a Jan, which is still used in Hindi and other languages. The other was Vish. Wish is little used, but it is used. The word Vaishya comes from the Vesh. You will learn about this in chapter number 5. What they're saying, the triangle of the religious triangle where Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and the Sudras. Okay? Let me draw it clearly that you can understand that. Yes. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. Oh, it's become more. So let me draw it. Let's take a break for 2 minutes. Okay, now break end. Now this is the triangle they're talking about. Vish. The word Vaishya comes from Vish. You will learn about this in chapter number 5. So they are saying Brahmins at the top. Okay. Then comes the Kshatriyas in the middle. Okay, this is the middle. The Vaishyas at the third number. Okay. Brahmins who perform rituals. Kshatriyas who fought wars, and Vaishyas who were traders and businessmen and sometimes farmers, and Shudras, that means untouchables. Okay, the people not accept them in the society. So this we will learn in detail in chapter number 5. Kingdom, kings and early republics. Now let's proceed. Several Vish or Jan are mentioned by name. So we find reference to the Puru Jan or Vish, the Bharat Jan or Vish, Bharata Jan and Vish, the Yadu Jan or Vish, Yadu Jan, Puru Jan, Bharat Jan, Bharat Vish, and so on. Sometimes the people who compose the hymns describe themselves as Aryas. The people who composed the hymns describe themselves as Aryas and call their opponents Dasyas, Das or Dasyus. Okay? That means the people who compose the hymns describe themselves as Aryas and their opponents are called Dasyas or Das or Dasyus. Okay, so these were people who did not perform sacrifices, Das or Dasyus, and probably spoke different languages. Later the term Das and its feminine Dasi came to mean slave, Das and Dasi. Slaves were women and men who were often captured in the war, as yet understand that battles are fought for the capturing men and people. Okay, so they were often captured in the war. They were treated as the property of their owner. That means the owner whoever bought them are the owners of the people. Slave trade that was famous in the South Africa during the rule of Dutch people, who could make them whatever work they wanted. That means owner wanted, Das and Dasi have to do. While the Rig Veda was being composed in the northwest of the subcontinent, northwest it means the present day Punjab, northwest Punjab. There were other developments elsewhere. Let us look at some of these. Silent Sentinels, the story of megaliths. Look at the illustration on the next page. Let's see in the next page the illustration. Okay, these stone boulders are known as megaliths, literally big stones. These are carefully arranged by people and used to mark burial sites. The practices of erecting megaliths began about 2,000 years ago and was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, in the Northeast, and in the Kashmir. Okay, let me explain it again. What are given? The stone boulders that we saw here. The stone boulders. Okay, stone boulders. This the stones and this. What is it? This is the type of megalith is known as schist. Okay, schist and the stone boulders. Yes, this image I am talking about. Stone boulders. They were carefully arranged by people, and used to mark by the burial sites. That means nowadays in the Christians and Muslim, when a person is buried under the soil, they mark like this, in which they are to mark where the burial is being buried. Or in Christians they do like this, na? If it is seen by Christian people, know this clearly, like this. Okay, they mark, or like this they mark. It's not proper. It's not proper, but I'm just want to explain you that what they are talking about. At that time they use the stone boulders, and nowadays we use like tape this to know. Okay, burial sites. The practice of erecting megaliths began about 3,000 years ago. The practice of making some type of thing that so that they can know that there is a burial site began 3,000 years ago, and was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, and Northeast, and the Kashmir. Okay, this is a burial site. What is it? This type of megalith is known as schist. Some schist, like one shown here, have porthole which could be used as an entrance. See, these are stones, and this can be used as an entrance. This. Some important megalith sites are shown on map 2, page 12. While some megalith can be seen on the surface, other megalith burials are often underground. Some can be seen often other in the grounds. Some can be seen on the surface. Okay. Sometimes archaeologists find a circle of stone boulders or a single large stone standing on the ground. As I explained, standing on the ground, that means it's if it is here's a burial, so it is stand like this, where the people's head are buried. So what are they saying? Sometimes archaeologists find a circle of a stone boulders or single large stone standing on the ground. These are the only indication that there are burials beneath, as explained. All these burials have some common features. Okay, common feature they have. Generally, the dead was buried with distinctive pots, which are called black and red ware. Also found the tools of the weapons of iron, and sometimes skeleton of horses, horse equipment, and ornaments of stone and gold. What is it giving the sense? It is giving the sense of life after death, life after death. Nah? That's why they are burying food, as we saw in the chapter number 3. Harpans burying food because so that it can become a source of food for the people in the afterlife. Like this, the ornaments they are burying. Iron equipment found from the megalithic burial. They have found from the megalithic burial. Left top, horse equipment. This is horse equipment. It is like, okay, it's horse equipment. left below axis. It is looking like a sleepers, na? But it is an axis. Small one, bigger one. Bigger one, small one. Okay? And dagger, obviously. See how detailed it is. How curved. The craft person who have made this is very talented and only doing this work only, na? What this I've learned, I've studied in chapter number 3, that some peoples are specified in their work, like this one here, na? That the person who are being there to make these axes, daggers, and to sold to the people who need them. Finding out about social differences, archaeologists think that the objects found with a skeleton probably belong to a dead person. Sometimes more objects are found in one grave than in another. Find Brahmagiri on map 2 Petral. Here one skeleton was buried in Brahmagiri with 33 gold beads, 2 stone beads, 4 copper bangles, and 1 couch shell. That means this could be our minister or something else. Other skeletons have only a few pots. These finds that there are some difference in status among the people who were buried. Some were rich, others were poor, some chief and others followers. Understand what I've said. But some burial spots meant for certain families. Sometimes megaliths contain more than one skeleton. These indicated people perhaps belonging to the same family was buried in the same place, though not at the same time. The bodies of those who died later was brought into the grave where the first person was buried through the potholes. Stone circles or boulders placed on the surface probably served as a signpost to the find burial site so that people could return to the same place whenever they wanted to. As I explained in this one, this is the pothole. Okay, this is the something that denotes that they are the dead body being buried. Okay, so that means let's suppose a person died and they buried in this pothole, and they make mark to understand that their burial. Okay, now another person died, like suppose his father died and his son also died after much after later. So they just simply open the porthole and passes the body into the burial and closed it, and they can come whenever they wanted to. Okay, a special burial in Amgon that we study, it is the village. Okay, find in Amgon map 2 page number 12. It is a site on the river Ghor, a tributary of Bhima river. It was here occupied between 3600 and 2700 years ago. Here adults are generally buried. They have found the burials of adults in the ground, laid out straight with the heads towards the north. Sometimes burials were within the houses. Vessels that probably contained food and water were placed with the dead, so that once again the sense of life after that, so that the food and water can be served for the person as a source in the afterlife. That means that the people have some religious thinking. That's what they are doing. One man was found buried in large 4-legged clay jar in the courtyard of 5-room house. That means a courtyard of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This must be entrance, and this is a courtyard. So person is being buried here. Okay. So one of the largest houses at the side. That's why they have 5 rooms. That means joint family can be lived there. In the center of the settlement in Ramgarh. These houses also had a granary where the people store their food. The body was placed in a cross-legged position. Okay. Do you think that was body of a chief? Give reason for your answer. It is easy to make a skeleton of a child. What skeletal studies tell us? It is easy to make out the skeleton of a child from its small size. However, there are no major differences in the bones of a girl and a boy. Okay, but there are no major differences. Can we make out whether a skeleton was that of man or woman? Sometimes people decide on the basis of what it is found with the skeleton. For instance, that means people differ that it is a man or woman by the what is found with the skeleton. Okay, what they have buried. For instance, if a skeleton found with the jewelry, it is sometimes thought to be the woman. However, there are problem with this. Often men also wore ornaments. Okay, a better way of figuring out the sex of a skeleton is to look at the bone structure. The hip or the pelvic area of woman is generally larger to enable childbearing. Okay, the hip or the pelvic area of woman is generally larger to enable childbearing. These distinctions are based on the modern skeletal studies. About 2000 years ago, there was a famous physician named Charak who wrote a book on medicine known as the Charak Samhita. A famous physician named Charak wrote the Charak Samhita. There he stated about human body has 360 bones. This is a much larger number than the 200 bones that are recognized in modern anatomy. 200 bones are recognized, but it is 360. Charak arrived at this figure by counting the teeth, joints, and the cartilage. He also counted the teeth. 36 teeth are there, joints and cartilage. Occupation in Navgaon. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millets, and sesame. Okay. 1 minute, please. Once again, I am reading. Once again, I am reading. Occupation in Navgaon. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millets, peas, and sesame. Bones of a number of animals, many bearing cut marks that show that they have been used as a food. Animals' bone they have found, historians. These include cattle. The people eat buffalo, goat, sheep, dog, horse, ass, pig, sambar, spotted deer. But the later cattle, buffalo, a goat, sheep, dog, and horse are used as domestic animals, and they don't eat this. They also eat black buck, antelope, hare, mongoose, besides birds, crocodiles, turtles, and fish. There is evidence of fruits such as bear, amla, jamun, dates, and a variety of berries which were collected. So this is the end of the chapter. There are keywords. Write these in the notebooks. Exercise, do yourself. And some important dates. Beginning of the composition of the Vedas about 3,500 years ago. Beginning of the building of megaliths about 3,000 years ago. Settlement in Navgaon between 3,600 and 2,700 years ago. Chanakya about 2,000 years ago. You have to fill this table, okay? And let the question answer in the notebook. So this is the end of the chapter. This is the end of the chapter. What books and burials tell us. End of the chapter. History class 6, chapter number 4. What books and burials tell us. We have completed. Like and subscribe to Shelter classes. Other chapters we will cover in the lectures of the concept classes. Help me next time. Keep reading and keep writing.